And it's interesting how that community has formed as a larger Latino community, what you just mentioned, Ozzie, because I'm thinking of the developments around Corktown, and the Detroit, city of Detroit had a master plan, and part of the master plan had to do with the coming of the Lodge Freeway. Well, it also had to do with the area around Trumbull and Bagley and Rosa Parks Boulevard and Lafayette, and a lot of homes were demolished to make room for commercial, what's that called? Commercial development. And so a lot of people were, what's the word I want to say?
Urban removal?
Urban removal, I want to say misplaced, but moved out of there to make room for the freeway and to make room for this light, the commercial development. So the years went by, these buildings were there maybe up into the 60s, maybe the 70s, and then we started seeing a decline of activity within those buildings, where today, if we go to the same area to see those buildings, most of them are abandoned. Most of them are vacant. So it's like, what were the city planners thinking? Because that's a part of that loss of that tax base that the city so badly needs, that doesn't have, because there's no activities going on there. For example, when Mexican Industries left. Okay, and then the other thing is, as an educator from Detroit Public Schools, I've been retired 2 years, but the more I see things like vacant houses, vacant property, the more I think of, no wonder we have a problem with the student enrollment in the schools, because for every abandoned house, there could have been another family occupying that dwelling or that apartment, and we don't see that, and so we have a change in enrollment. And what has that done for the state of the way things are today?
Let me piggyback on something, because I know you would have, both of you were real active, or at least involved in the community to a certain extent, when there was still some, or your families were, when there was an active strip, commercial strip, all the way from what is the John C. Lodge, all the way through what is now left of Mexican Town, the restaurant district. I remember very vaguely that you could walk down Bagley and there were shops, there was 2 movie theaters, because my mother, that's how I got to know about Pedro Infante and all of it, because I would go, my mother would take us to the Mexican movies all the, and the Santos, the wrestlers and all of that. What is your recollection of that commercial strip, which got broken up by the expressways? 2 of them, Lodge, and then later on the Jeffries.
Yeah. Well, when the Lodge came in, that's when we saw the decline of Chinatown,
Oh
Times
yeah,
Square,
I remember very
Skid
vaguely.
Row, and but then in the 70s, when the I-75 freeway came in to make to going toward the bridge, that's where we saw the breakup of Bagley. Bagley was vibrant, so was Verner at that time. Not that it isn't now, but it was quite vibrant then. What you mentioned, I remember 3 Mexican theaters, movie theaters. You could see Cantinflas, Pedro Infante, and all the other. There was one on, called the Alamo, the Cine Azteca, and the Stratford.
The Stratford
was another one. Yeah. And it was where the bridge, okay, there was not even a bridge there, where there could have been, and where there was a move to try to get one to bridge the 2 Bagleys that became separated. And it's like 40 some years later, they finally built a bridge.
A little bit after the fact, right?
Yeah. 2 generations later.
Ziggy, what's your impression, your recollection of that same strip era?
Well, you know what? Everything's messed up now compared to the way it was. Then the way I look at things. I went to Webster School, the old Webster that was across from the Ambassador Bridge. It was on 21st Street. All of Miss Alcala's kids went there also. She had a whole bunch of kids, probably 12 or 13. But the city fathers or the city planners, I don't think they should have been paid. I don't think they did any planning. I don't think they really cared. For one thing, they have shown over and over, even to the present day, that they don't care about Latinos in Detroit. How many times have you seen Mayor Bing in this section of the city? At Clark Park, where we had even seen Kwame, we have never seen Mayor Bing. And the city fathers, most of them, Kavanaugh, Roman Gribbs was there one time, and he was only a mayor for about 4 years. But the ones that were there extensively, they didn't care. But we did have G. Menon Williams when we
Oh, yeah, I
had,
remember
This
seeing
governor.
him a lot.
we had the Hispano-American Democratic League. And in 1959, I belonged to that. And the Puerto Rican Club was also in that. And we needed jerseys for our hockey team. And the Puerto Rican Club was the only one that pitched in money. And I had to sell bacalao to help them out.
That's cool.
And it was cool, it was different. And I thought, well, you know, they were good enough to help us. We got to help
Do you
them.
remember some of the names?
No, but the club was on Michigan Avenue.
14th Street in Michigan.
And
Geraldo Guzman, do you remember that name? That's my uncle. He was
That
president
was your
during
uncle?
the time. Yeah.
yeah, they were really great. But in those days, we used to get Philip Hart, the senator.
Yeah.
And we got G. Menon Williams down there.
He had them big ties. I remember
Yeah.
coming to Holy Trinity often.
Yeah, well,
Like Soupy Sales.
yeah, polka dot ties. They were green and white. And they had a lot of people that were politicians coming through there. But you know how politicians are. They come and see you when they need your vote. Then
Yeah.
you don't see them again. And like Roberto was pointing out, when they tore that neighborhood apart, not only with the 696 that goes right into, well, that's the one that tore up Bagley.
Yeah.
And goes right to the bridge there, that 96 one, but the lodge, like you said.
Well, it's interesting because the 75 at the same time destroyed Black Bottom, Paradise
Right.
Valley. So it was a master plan to basically the few communities of color, residential, were basically destroyed.